Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining. My name is Matt Bassam. I'm a junior consultant at Turner & Townsend. I'm joined today by Emma Woods, who's also from Turner & Townsend. She's a principal consultant. This is a retrofit information support and expertise event, which is fully funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, which is being delivered by Turner & Townsend. Again, thank you all for joining, and I will hand over to Emma to start today's presentation.
Great, thank you, Matt. Yes, so today we're here to talk about modelling software for housing retrofit. I will say that we aren't here to promote or talk about any specific providers. We're here to talk about the benefits of having modelling software and helping you plan for your retrofit projects. So as an agenda, then we'll capture why software, why is it important, why is it useful, the different software providers, but more specifically, what kind of user elements you need when you're looking at modeling, and what kind of things to think about when you're procuring these different software providers. And then talk about, once you've procured them, what kind of things you want to bring out of it, or what do you want to get out of those modeling softwares. So why software? Why is it useful to have different software? So having modeling software really helps to enhance the visibility of all the data that you have across your housing stock. So you may have property level data, you can have Power BI maps, and that's basically a good visual presentation of different maps showing the overall stock. It helps you view things by different categories. So for example, you might have a graph that shows how many EPCs you have, or how many homes you have across each EPC band. If you then click on to look at all properties below EPC band C, you'll then be able to see what the makeup of those properties are. So it really helps you to visualize what your stock is made of. The other part of it is it helps to streamline your data management. So you can collect a single version of the truth that gives you a platform to manage your data, rather than it sitting in lots of different places. So I know a lot of people have different asset systems. They may have stock condition surveys that are coming in, retrofit assessments that are coming in. You may then have a home energy analytics software, but the whole point of software is that hopefully it's supposed to be the single version of the truth of what your home is at the moment. So making sure that that gets updated as and when installations take place or recent EPCs and stock condition surveys are carried out. The other benefit for having software is it helps to improve your data quality, because by having better visibility of the data, you can start to capture some of those inconsistencies or gaps within your data. Also, different software systems, they also can give you data quality scores. So depending on what software system you procure, some of them may give you a rating saying, this particular home, we can give a confidence rating of 6 out of 10 or wherever it might be. And then lastly, different software systems provide different additional functionalities, such as modeling what those investment scenarios look like. So especially home energy analytics software, these softwares basically say, take all my stock, plug it into a model, I want to retrofit it to get to an EPC band C, and then it will spit out what recommendations should be applied to those to reach that target, and potentially what the costs, etc. of those are. So if you didn't have software and you had to do that manually, you might be having to go through a single property, updating the loft insulation, for example, applying a specific wall insulation, and having to do that manually and figuring out when it gets to an EPC band C. So having modeling software really helps you to kind of do that more effectively. So yeah, software will help you to build your retrofit projects much more effectively than if you were to have to do it manually. So how can you choose the right software for you? So firstly is thinking about the functionality. When you're looking at the different software providers, you want to start by looking at what the platform interface looks like. And that might sound really silly, but actually how a software system looks, where things are stored, how easy is it to use is really important, because ultimately you want to make this the go-to tool that your team uses to better understand your data. So if it's a really complex tool that requires lots of different training and other people to get involved, rather than you being able to manage it, or actually you prefer for someone else to manage it, it's understanding what those platform interfaces are and what is the best fit for you. The other is the data variables. So different software systems may have different variables and what they're capturing in terms of the data. So for example, there are specific things that you might want a software system to tell you, and that might be you want to tell it what the EPC score is, or specifically what the SAP score is for those different properties. You want it to model what the carbon savings are, what the carbon efficiency is at the moment, potential fuel bills and how it divides up that potential fuel bills and how it's calculated. And then there are other different data variables which can also be included in modeling systems, such as overheating, flood risks, and other things like that. So understanding what data variables you as an organization are interested in capturing across your stock, and then making sure that those software systems have those available. And then the last one is the modeling capability. So how does the actual modeling work? It's all well and good asking it to, throw out some outputs of how it's going to get to an EPC band C, but what was the process to get there? So does it give you additional steps to create bespoke measure groups? So for example, you might say, I want to target a specific block of flats, but I'm not going to apply solar PV to blocks of flats because I know it's going to be difficult to achieve. So I'm going to take that measure out. Or it could be, I don't want to do internal wall insulation because it's too disruptive. It's not something that we as an organization deliver at the moment. So let's take that measure out. So understanding that modeling capability and being able to kind of create bespoke options for what you're looking for. And then also thinking about the stepped approach. So does it allow you to model to different targets? So rather than just EPC band C, does it allow you to model to heating demand targets or other things like carbon targets? So it'd be really good to understand what that functionality looks like and asking these kind of questions. The next is the different cost models. So when you procure different software, especially for ones that provide investment scenarios, it's understanding what the different cost models are for having those in place. So for example, you might have a software system which does it by a subscription basis, where you pay, every year you pay a certain amount. There's maybe a setup fee to start with, or there are some models which you pay per home. So depending on how many properties you own, they cost it that way. So depending on what your budgets are, different models may be able to kind of support those different financial budgets. The next is additional support. So alongside the software, there are some software systems that also provide additional consultancy support to help train your team up on how to use it if you come across challenges, or if actually the software system is kind of managed by them, understanding what that technical support looks like and any other additional add-on packages. So for example, other add-on packages for looking at climate resilience, such as overheating, flood risks, EV charging points, whatever it might be worth exploring what those add-on packages are. And then lastly is the ease of getting set up. So it's all well and good thinking, absolutely, yes, let's get some software. But if you are working towards a deadline, it is worth understanding what is involved to procure a software system and get everything set up, because you first need to understand what data you have and what format the software system supports. So once you've spoken to the different software provider, it's then understanding how they can turn your current format into the format they need, and then for them to clean that data and fill in any gaps or clone data where needed. So that can take a significant amount of time, anything from kind of 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer. So it's really good to kind of think about that now, if that's something you've not got software systems in place or you're looking to get software in place. So we're now going to talk a little bit about the different software providers. So in terms of software then, when selecting a specific software product for your organization, some of the things you want to look for, as I said, is the platform to upload and manage your stock and identify any kind of data quality concerns. The second is what modeling functionalities it has. So that can be anything from baselining your current energy performance for each home, and then also looking at that last point there, facilitating actual modeling investments. So setting different targets and estimating the cost of those retrofits. The other thing with the costing as well, when it comes to costing those retrofits, is how flexible are those costs and where have those costs come from? So some software providers update their costs based on contractors that they've had experience working with. It could be from kind of market data. So it's good to understand how that where their costs have come from, but also, is there a way to plug in your costs into it if it needs changing? So for example, actually you know how much EWI is costing you per square meter. Is there a way to plug that figure into the model to update it based on costs that you're experiencing? So each different software provider all have different functionalities, and it's really important to spend some time with them to understand how their software works, what it is that they can offer for those different elements. So here is an example of a few different software providers. As I said, we're not here to plug any of them. These are just some of them that we've come across having worked with other providers outside of the RISE program, but there are numerous others that are available. And another thing is there you have got tier one contractors that may have their in-house software for kind of energy analysis systems. But I would say you want your own for your whole housing stock as well at some point, so it's worth considering that. So you've got Has Energy, which has Streamline. You've got Parity Projects, which do portfolio. The BRE group have the HSDC. I can't remember what that stands for. I think it's Housing Stock Data. So yeah, condition potentially, but that's a lot to do with local authorities and private housing. You have IoT Energy Saving Trust, Home Energy Analytics, Sava Intelligent Energy, and then Uno from the Energy Audit Company. So there are a number of other providers, as I said, and it's worth actually speaking to other landlords that are using different software providers and getting feedback from them about which ones they like using, what kind of grievances they have with some of those different software systems, and asking these questions when you come to carry out demos with some of these software providers. But it's really important when you're thinking about these different software systems is what is your data governance going to be as well? Who is going to be responsible for looking after that, updating that system? How is recent stock condition surveys that are taking place, how does that then get uploaded and updated onto your system, and how easy is that to do? So you want a single source of the truth. You want to understand where you've got maintenance works that overlap potentially with some other retrofit work, and you want to make sure that it's consistent across your organization and the quality of the data you're putting forward is high quality. So engaging with different software providers. So the process of procuring a software system can seem really daunting if it's something relatively new to your organization. So you'll need buy-in across your organization to do so, and potentially provide your team with maybe an options appraisal of the different software providers, the pros and cons and benefits of each one of those. So I'm hoping these steps will help you grasp what kind of information you need to be able to make that informed decision. So I always recommend starting with talking to your internal team. What is it that your team needs? What data does your team hold and own? What kind of information do they want to understand? How do they want to be able to use that data and easily access it? So that way you can start building up an essential list of things you absolutely need to be able to, the software to be able to do. The next is actually going out and talking to different software providers, asking for different demos, different quotes, and asking them different questions. So alongside our masterclass today, we will eventually be uploading our data toolkit, which actually has some suggestion of questions that you can go away to the software providers and ask to help you understand what questions actually, help you really get to the grits of what kind of functions you need from that software system. Discuss the setup process, because as I said, although it seems really great having that software system in place, if you're working towards a deadline, you need to know what that setup process looks like, not just how long it takes, but who else in your team will have to be involved in helping that get set up. So if you've got current data analysts across your team, how much time they're going to have to put forward in sending across the data, and not just the short term of getting things set up, but eventually long term, that data governance process of who's going to be responsible for the uploads, who's going to be responsible for reviewing it, and how often and frequent does that get reviewed and managed. And then lastly is actually learning and understanding how the model works. It's really important you don't just go out and buy a software system and not actually understand how are the calculations done. Is there going to be flexibility for if SAP changes? Is it going to allow for kind of the different SAP 10 coming in? How easy is it for you to be able to create bespoke measures? How is the fuel bills calculated and what is that based off? How's the costings work? So actually understanding how it works to know whether or not that's going to be realistic for a delivery. Now, there's only so much you can do through desktop data, that you will eventually have to do some validation through real life kind of retrofit assessments, some detailed assessments such as boroscoping, etc. So you want to know how it currently works and what your realistic delivery looks like so that you can try tailor it as best as possible. So actually using the software then, how can you effectively use software to help you scope properties and develop those preliminary designs? So firstly, it's really important when using the modeling software, as I said at the very start, is what are the data variables that you want included and what are you trying to baseline or model? So all the variables required for different applications may require different things. So for example, previously you needed your archetype data, understanding what archetypes they're categorized into, so what wall construction is, what dwelling type it is, and all of these different things. And it may seem really simple, and yes, you have that data, but what is the quality of that as well? Because things like the wall construction is often inaccurate in a lot of landlords' data. The next is EPC score and EPC ratings. Hopefully this is relatively simple and you have this information, and hopefully you have it to kind of the SAP score level, not just the EPC band. Estimated fuel bills. So this is really interesting. So how they've determined the estimated fuel bills, is that just through the RD SAP calculations, or is there anything else that they've done to kind of estimate some of those fuel bills? CO2 impact. So this is just got the carbon emissions. Again, most of this will come through those RD-SAP or reduced SAP calculations, and that is the standard way of calculating an energy performance of a home. You also have the heat thermal conductivity. So this is the HTC. So this is how kind of heat is being lost, or how heat is being lost within a property. And then you have the basic kind of dwelling information that you should all hopefully have across your stock, and that's just the property age, the UPRNs, the unique property reference number, that is like an identifier code for each property, and then the location of the property. So all of these different things will help you better understand what properties you have, but also how to identify what properties might be suitable. So considerations when using different software. So by adjusting your approach, you can best locate properties appropriate for retrofit through kind of having different software systems. So first is the quality of your data. Do you have any large gaps in your EPC data? If you did, it may be best to target a geographical area where there is a high level of kind of fuel poverty, or kind of high area of interest because of poor performing EPCs. And are you using the most recent and relevant data available to you? Modeling experience. So how confident are you using and interpreting the outputs for different modeling software? So how are you kind of understanding the different targeting approach for those similar archetypes? So for example, can you identify where there are semi-detached houses, or where there are kind of high-rise blocks of flats? Testing different scenarios, so ensuring your modeling software includes multiple variables. So do the variables include, so for example, do you allow kind of different measures that you can put forward? Does it allow you to set different targets? So if you want to set an EPC band C target, but also want to set a 90 kilowatt per hour per meter squared target, is there the capability for doing that? And how you select your properties. So does your modeling methodology align with your kind of corporate strategy? So are there kind of specific properties that you need to target to reach EPC band C by 2030? Is there specific areas where they're kind of a priority? Is there alignment from other work as well? So for example, if you've got fire safety work or decent homes projects coming up, is there a way to select those properties alongside some of the retrofit work? Future retrofit targets and ambitions. So yes, you might be, setting a target for EPC band C by 2030, but have you thought about that longer term target and ambition, and what the impact is of just looking at an EPC Band C target. So actually thinking about what that retrofit pathway looks like to net zero and where the intermediate point is for it to achieve EPC Band C, achieve all the fabric and heating demand targets before then considering any low carbon opportunities. And then lastly is just the limitations of modeling software. It's absolutely great, especially if you've got a really, really large portfolio of housing, to model multiple homes at once and try to understand what that preliminary design looks like for each home. However, the modeling is only as good as the data going in, and you can not always be confident with that data. So actually carrying out validating some of that desktop data through retrofit assessments. So if you're looking to put forward a, let's say, project of 100 homes, carrying out either 10% of retrofit assessments for those homes to understand how it's performing, or even better, doing on an archetype basis. So actually understanding what archetypes fit within those 100 homes and how many retrofit assessments can you do per archetype. So the next one is targeting properties and what the preliminary design looks like. So once you've defined what your target outcomes are within your organization and what you're looking to set, you can then plug that into your model, and then it should output what the preliminary design looks like for that data. So firstly, to do that, you need to compile all the existing data. So how effective is the software in reviewing any existing data, including gaps, existing defects, construction type, etc. And then need to assemble the right team. So need to consider if someone's going to be doing that internally, or if that's going to be done through subcontractors or other contractors. And then lastly is considering the ease of access. So is the software model complex in terms of operation and usability and understanding, and how easy is it someone for them to be able to draw out the information they need for applications or other retrofit work. So the last few things then to consider when targeting properties in your preliminary designs is firstly consider the budget and the funding. Is it imperative to know intended software model proposing to be used and how it fits into the project budget and funding? Next is to check your objectives and intended outcomes. So review the functionalities of the modeling software against your objectives to make sure that they are aligned to what you need. Then you want to establish whether the software model needs to comply with other certain requirements. So does the software model meet the standards of compliance and effectiveness of the project? So for example, PAS 2035, does it have those considerations? And if not, how do you take into account some of those PAS 2035 elements? And then lastly is thinking about potential contractors and ongoing maintenance needs. So this is proven, really valuable to understand what additional work or things that they might need to consider for their maintenance needs. So for example, if you're going to install an air source heat pump, what other maintenance needs are going to be required across your organization? And then also from a software perspective, carrying out retrofit assessments, how does that data then feed back into your updated model or data? And that is it.